Means fearless flight. That means that we're actually back kind of on a schedule, and we're no longer at Diane's house. Matter of fact, not only was I not at Diane's house, but I've been in Mexico twice this week. So I've got refreshed my memories of what it is to fly out there, and it is a little bit different world. I was surprised in just the last 6 months what's evolved out there. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Going to talk a little bit about the media's influence on your perceptions out there, and a few other things. We got a couple of really good questions that came in off of our social media. And with that, I want to welcome everybody. We got Dieter here up in Toronto and Diane down here. Eric is off playing. Last we saw him, he was in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, or South Carolina? North Carolina, I think.
North Carolina.
Yeah, and he was at the Wright brothers location where they made the first flight in 1903. And the last picture we got, we didn't get a video, we just got a picture. He was flapping his wings as hard as he could to see if he could get the first, as far as the Wright brothers did on their first flight. So he's going to be out. We'll hear his input from probably next week and all that. So anyway, we'd like to welcome you back. Anybody out there who's a fearless flyer or fearful flyer, anybody who knows somebody who's afraid to fly, and anybody who just likes to talk about aviation, we welcome you tonight. The next thing is we want to invite anybody who's not already a member of our Birds of a Feather Facebook group. It's growing by leaps and bounds. We're into that exponential part there where we're getting tons of people every week, and we're grateful for that because it really helps sustain a lot of mutual support. Keep the participation coming in there. We got a lot of great questions coming out of that, and a lot of crosstalk and mutual support. So we're really grateful for that. So keep up the good work. Dieter's got the link up there, and he'll have it in the show notes as well. Tonight we're going to talk about the 101 online class again. We're going to highlight both the in-person class this will be our second month after we've resumed after 14 months of COVID vacancy. And we're going to do our first 101 online class for any of you who can't get to the Phoenix area that have maybe felt left out for the rest of the or other times in our history. It was a big week for Fearless Flight flyers. I flew with Tracy Solis last week, you saw, and oh gosh, I can't believe I just spaced out who I was going to highlight. I went to Mexico with an elite coaching student, and he did terrific on going all the way down and all the way back. We went down to a place called Leon, Mexico, which I had not been to before, which was interesting. And I had another recent flyer story. I'll think of it sometime later on there. We got a special guest tonight, Ross McKinley. Some of you may know Ross, or you may know of Ross, and we're going to clear up some rumors and some non-facts about Ross's history and experience with Fearless Flight. We got a couple of things in the aviation news update. Diane will be contributing her flight attendant's corner, and we've got a couple of questions at the end there. So let's get underway here and go into a poll question. This is a theme tonight, and that is, I pay attention to media reports about aviation safety. And what I mean, I could have worded that a little bit better, is that not just pay attention, but it captures your attention. Okay, so we just like to know where you're at out there. Do you pay attention, and does it grab your attention, or are you able to detach a little bit from that? Okay. So answer that throughout the show here. And if you aren't watching us live, you're watching the replay, we would love to hear your comments on that as well. We're going to remind you again, June 5th, if you will be in the Phoenix area or you're live in the Phoenix area, our new 101 in-person class is going to, we're going to have our second class since we've resumed classes at the airport, and the entire class is on the airplane now. So you get a lot more time in the saddle, working on exposure therapy, getting used to just being on the airplane there. It's a great experience, and we hope that if you're around here, you can make it. And then the next morning, we're going to do our first online class on the 6th. And we call that the online class, and the one in the evening, the in-person class. And same great content that we did the night before, only you won't have the airplane with you. So you'll have to get yourself a model airplane or get some cardboard boxes. And like we used to do as kids, get some appliance boxes and fix yourself up a little airplane there so you can simulate that part. But anyway, it's going to be really a great show and stuff. So now what I'd like to do, I'd like to bring on our special guest. Ross and I have, well, he probably has a more accurate record. I remember Ross in the year 2014, because that, for any of you who don't remember, was the year that the MH370 disappeared over in Malaysia, Malaysian Air 370. And Ross, welcome. Hey, glad you can make it. We're gonna make you the hero that you are tonight. All right.
Well, that's very nice.
It should be. Yeah.
You just want me to start my story?
Yeah. So start out by, about your history with Fear of Flying, how you got involved with the likes of me and bring it forward. Okay.
Okay. I've always been afraid to fly. I flew once in 1966. My voice is sort of fluttering here, just even thinking about it. Yeah. In 1966, so my 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s go by, and I haven't been on an airplane, and I haven't really thought about it. And so what would happen is people would say, "Oh yeah, I went down to Mexico. I went here. I went there," and they say, "Well, have you gone anywhere?" And I go, "I don't fly."
Yeah. And Ross, refresh my memory. Was that all those years you had never flown, or you didn't fly all those years? I forgot. Never. Okay. Yeah. Now I remember.
So people would immediately, they would take off and say, well, why don't you fly? And, it's safest form of transport, on and on and on incessantly. And every time I would set myself up by saying, I don't fly.
Yeah.
One time I thought I was going to talk myself into flying when I was about, I don't know, maybe 45. And I was going to go see my mother. She was in San Antonio and she was sick. And so I lived in Monterey. So I drove down to LAX and I was going to fly over from there. Well, as soon as I got in the airport parking lot and got out, I could hear the jet engines and I started having an anxiety attack. So I just got in my car and drove to San Antonio. It was
Oh my gosh. Wow.
That severe.
Yeah.
As I mentioned on the videotape, my parents' funeral, my father died and we had a memorial ceremony here. And then he was buried in San Antonio and I couldn't get on an airplane to go to his funeral. Same thing happened with my mother, memorial service, funeral, I didn't go.
Yeah.
Severe, guilt and shame, actually.
And that's a lot of things. That's a thing that many people can identify with. I get a lot of people comment about the fact that one of the not premier events, but one of the most memorable events that they couldn't attend was the funeral services for their parents.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So then I figured I had to do something. So I saw Ron's ad for Fear of Flying, and I went to it. And I think in those days it was 3 sessions. Okay, so I went to the first session. Okay, that's okay. Second session, okay. Third session, okay. At the end of the third session, Ron says, "Okay, who's ready to fly down to Tucson?" And I was like, "What? Fly to Tucson?" After 3 sessions, I said, "No, this is impossible." So I took some time off, and then I said, "Okay, I'm gonna come back for a second one." And I went through 3 more sessions of that, and we didn't go flying anywhere. And so I think with the third session, seems like a lot of sessions to get the job done, but with the third session, Dateline became involved, and they were doing it on Fear of Flying. And I thought, you know what, this is some extrinsic motivation for me. Maybe I can help some other people get on an airplane. And that it was all that I needed. So I kept that in my mind. I'm helping people, I'm helping people, I'm helping people.
Yeah.
So,
and you're a teacher, so that's in your blood, right? I mean,
I guess
yeah.
for a cost, I'll help you out. So we decided to go to Burbank, and we got on the plane, and the people that went with us were so nice. They were so supportive. It was just unbelievable. It was like I was thinking today what it was like. It was like we were in a foxhole together.
Yeah. That's a great example. I never thought about that before. I mean,
there was a woman there, and we were all sort of huddled up in the front on the right, And the other people were kind of chill about it. It was like, okay, I don't really like to fly, but here we go. And I was like, okay, where are my straws? You know, I need to get going. You know, I need to do some distractions or something. And this woman was holding my hand. I didn't even know her, but I guess she saw that I was like clinging to the cliff, sort of. And I thought it might work out a little bit better, because there was one woman on there in the back, in the middle, sort of. She was crying, and sobbing, and I thought to myself, I can do better than that. You know?
Right.
I said, at least I'm not the one who's crying and sobbing over there. And when we went over there, it was sort of nerve-wracking. I moved up to the front. I don't know if you said it was easier to navigate the bumps at Burbank in the front. I was up there, and then all of a sudden, it was sort of a combination of, I wasn't really worried about the bumps and the plane crashing like I always was in the past, but I have sort of a motion sickness, and I got dizzy as we were going down, bumping and bumping and bumping. By the time we got down there, I was just not just motion sickness, but a little vertigo, and felt sort of like PTSD or something like that. I was like in shock. That's what it was. I was just like in shock. And, you know, you were very supportive and helpful and tried to come over and talk me through it, but my mind was made up.
Yeah. And I remember that's what dominated, you know. First it was the nausea, and then it was really kind of a spatial disorientation, which is, you know, when your blood pressure gets up high like that, you know, that's it influences your ability to balance and pay attention. And then again, you don't have as many visual cues as you would if you were, you know, if we could open the door and let you look out the front windows, it probably would have solved it in a heartbeat. But unfortunately, they don't allow that. So
unfortunately, the other part is the ending when they came, is that I felt like I'd been sabotaged.
Yeah.
Because we were over there having a private conversation, and they were recording that conversation from about 25 feet away with a boom mic.
Yeah.
One of those furry microphones.
Yep.
And so then when I turned, I thought, okay, that'll be it. And I turned and walked away. I didn't expect them to keep filming me. And I didn't know what to expect. And I certainly didn't expect them to make that little comment about, well, I guess he failed or something like that. So the more I thought about it, what I'd signed up to do was to go on an airplane. I didn't sign up to make a round trip to Burbank.
And I remember, I want to throw this out there, that when we got back, my recollection, you might remember differently, is, you know, you were discouraged, and I called you up and I said, I'd like you to come to the class. You know, some people are going to share their experiences. And you said, why me? You know, because you didn't consider yourself a success. And I don't know whether I got this right or not. It's a great story, and pilots don't let the truth get in the way of good stories. So you'll be here to correct me. But when you came in there, I remember there were 5 people that day that talked about their experiences, and you were one of them. And you got up there and very candidly and very openly shared, you know, your entire experience like you did here, and your history and all that. And you said that when you got to thinking about it, you promised yourself that you would fly to Burbank, but you didn't promise yourself you would fly back. And everybody laughed at that, of course. But to me, that was a classic reframing, you know, which let you out from under that shame umbrella. And it really worked. It did. You know?
It did. I was on an airplane. I did fly in the air.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. And I want to say just a few things about the media, because, you know, it's always a difficult position for me to be in, because I love to get the free publicity to widen the number of people that we come in contact with who have this. But it is a trade-off sometimes. And I was very disappointed today. And they had brought one of their network anchors out, and this guy was a top gun. They just lured him away from CBS. He had been a CBS anchor for years, and I won't say his name, but I was disappointed that the way that they edited that. You know, of course it's dramatic, and you know, they're going for viewership, but it didn't put what I would have loved to have had is to have them come back for when we did fly. And if we can, I want to move on just real quickly to what happened beyond that. Please, Anyway, and so you came to the class and you were a big hit with the people in the class. I remember everybody giving you a standing ovation. And then we talked a little bit off and on, I'm going to say over the next couple of months. And then we kind of disconnected.
Right.
And then out of the blue, I get, if Dieter can put that picture up there. I hope he can put that picture. Here we go. This picture. So you tell me, how did you get to this point with this picture?
That was the first place I went. We went to Denver or Boulder. My wife was taking a class. And
so you flew, you got back on an airplane without without me, other than what we had talked about briefly, right? So how did you get on an airplane?
It was just time. It was like, I was embarrassed that I'd driven back home from California. Yeah. It was just a matter of pride that, I do it. I don't know if you remember too, when you look at the video, I thought I looked like a corpse when I was sitting in those chairs talking to those people. I was so wide, I think I'd lost about 15 pounds. It was too much. So this was in Boulder, and I've flown a little bit. I've flown to Boulder, Oakland, San Jose, and where's the other one? Reno. And usually what I do is I'm not a flyer. I wouldn't call myself a flyer, but I have about an hour and a half radius from wherever I am.
Sure. But this was, what I recall was this was a trip that your wife, was it the first time you flew after the Burbank flight? I
I'm not sure.
I think it doesn't matter, but I think it was, and so here I am one day, and I get a
envelope.
Go to the post office, go to the mailbox, and I come out, and I got a 8.5 by 11 picture in this thing, and I opened up, and sure enough, because they have, this is Trader Joe's, and they have a banner, and they called their monthly flyer the Fearless Flyer. And so what you had shared with me is you saw that over there, and you said, stop the car, I got to go get a picture. So it was great, and I've used this many times. And the thing I want to emphasize here is that while the presentation that they left with ABC, with the Nightline piece, was disappointing in many ways. Yeah, they got the word out and they talked about it, but what they really needed, the story to me, was when you just said, okay, I've got to do this. I can't let this run my life. And you went ahead and did it. And then you had some of the other flights, and you're a fencer, right? Enthusiast. And
in fact, 3 of them were fencing related. Yeah. And I also use what's it called? I've had like a half a tab of Valium. I use, some things to sort of help me.
Yeah.
Along. I don't know if those are, true or acceptable, but.
Well, it could be the placebo effect. It could actually work, but that in either case, it's working for you. So, right. I think, I always tell people, when they volunteer to call me, you need to raise your hand, put it behind your head, and pat yourself on the back, because you're one of the boldest people I've ever met. And this is what inspires me to do this, Ross, is people like you, because there's no way you had to ever get on an airplane again. You could have run the rest of your life without doing that. And I'm just really proud to have met you. And I've always, whenever somebody does talk to me, I say, where did you hear about Fearless Flight? And they say, I think that was, they can't even remember it was ABC Nightline. They just remember, I remember that movie, and the guy, he ended up renting a rental car, and then I tell them the rest of the story, because the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say, is the real story.
Right. There's so many people who came, a woman came, I was at the deli counter, the butcher counter, we're in Scottsdale, and this woman goes, weren't you that guy on tape?
Yeah.
I went, oh, Jesus. Yeah, it was horrible. And there was somebody else too. Just out of nowhere, people like remembered my face or remembered my pain.
Yeah, but the people that I've talked to, who are probably far more than you have, talk about your courage more than anything, and how hard that was for you. So again, kudos to you. And are you flying any at all now? I know you live out in California now. So okay,
no, I'm a good driver though.
Yeah.
I have about a 15-hour drive radius. If it goes more than that, I probably will have to fly.
All right. Well, I'll keep hoping that the radius you'll get outside the radius again, and you know how to get a hold of us. So anyway, but thanks for coming, Russ. I really appreciate it. Again, I really envy you for the courage that you have, and you are an inspiration to other people. So you could
quickly, if I can say one last thing, is that you've been so helpful and so gracious in what you've been saying here. That has made a difference. But I truly believe that if I can fly, anybody can fly.
Yeah.
I mean, I was frozen from 1966 to 2014. That's a long time to mull it over.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me ask Dieter if anybody has any questions for you.
Well, there were actually a couple people that could relate to the shame and the heartbreak when you can't attend a loved one's funeral, or any situation where that fear gets in the way of connecting, right? When it keeps us isolated and away. So we've had a couple comments that really appreciated the fact that you could really share it in such a, I'm gonna say, because it's meaningful, right? It's you can fly now, but you do remember the journey, what it was like. So, and that empathy, I think, really came through in your sharing. So thank you for that.
He's a real role model for the courage. It's mind-blowing. It really is, the bravery. And Ross, you are a shining example of what can happen. Really, it's just amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome. As long as you follow what Ron has to say.
Yeah. Well, and another thing, you're just another example for me of why I love doing this, because you've become a good friend, and I feel like when we meet, we may not have talked for months or so, but I feel like I can just pick up a conversation right with you, and that's because you made yourself so vulnerable, and that's what changing the way you think about is all about. So anyway, so thanks for sharing it again, Ross. And you can if you want, you can listen to the rest of the stuff. You probably heard enough of me for one night, but
I don't know. Maybe you have some new material.
Yeah, and we never new material. It ruined the whole thing. No. But anyway, and if you have comments or something, I really appreciate that too. So anyway, congratulations, and we really appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to combine now, we're going to move into Diane's area, the flight attendant corner. She's got a couple of things she wants to share with you, and then we're going to talk about some stuff that happened in the industry this week, or at least we became aware of, and that's related to flight attendants. So go ahead, Diane. Oh, we lost your audio.
There, can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah, we can.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I had to. I didn't want to, but I had to on that one. Yes, don't hurt the flight attendants. And I love Ron's little addendum, like the airplane, we plan to reuse them. We would like to be reused too. Just this last few days, there was an item in the news of an altercation on an aircraft, and a passenger became very combative and violent and punched a flight attendant and knocked out 2 teeth. We don't want to think of being a flight attendant as a contact sport. We really are there for your safety. And the statistics that you can read online, if you do some research there, the numbers of interactions that are unfortunate with unruly passengers the numbers have really gone up, and it's scary to a degree. I mean, we are trained to deal with difficult situations, certainly, but we're really, and we take self-defense classes too, but we certainly, that's not for sure our initial preferred interaction with our passengers.
It's the emergency defense. It's not what you plan on for UFC fighting or anything. Yeah.
And so
you're not a flight marshal.
Right, you're right. So I mean, that's that one aspect that I wanted to address. The other thing is I want to sort of not just for our fearful flyers, but people who are interested in flying, and our fearful flyers too when they get on, is to go over maybe this week and coming weeks some of the things that we do and say and why we do them. And tonight I want to talk about bins and bags, and that is just a normal thing for us, is the overhead bins and the bags underneath the seat in front of you. And when we go through and we make sure all the bins are shut, and when I go through and the other flight attendants go through and say, please stow all your bags completely underneath the seat in front of you, we're not just trying to be obsessive compulsive and overly tidy to make sure that the straps on your backpacks are underneath the seat. This is a what's it called, a FAR. It's a Federal Aviation Regulation. The Federal Aviation Administration has a very large compendium of regulations that govern our industry and govern us as flight attendants, anyone that's dealing with passengers, from the number of flight attendants per passenger number on an aircraft. If there are 50 passengers or less, you need one. If you have 51 passengers, you need at least two, and so on and so forth. But the other thing is, as I was saying, the bins and the bags, all of the things that we are talking to the passengers and instructing the passengers on, they are all safety related. All of them are safety related. In fact, I had a cute little interaction with a passenger just this last week on my 3-day trip. And the aisle armrests do move. They come up, so it makes it a little bit easier for individuals to get into or out of their seats. And a lot of the armrests have little buttons way underneath that you can't see. And there was a passenger and she was struggling, and I went up and popped it up, and she looked at me and she just, oh my gosh, thank you so very much. And I looked at her and I jokingly said, and you just thought I was here to keep you alive. But that's actually what we do. I mean, we're there to keep you alive, keep you safe. We literally cannot close the main cabin door unless all the bins are shut and all the bags are appropriately stowed underneath the seat. Why? And I'm kind of really big on that, is if you had to get out of your seat in a hurry, the possibility is that you're going to trip on something, and that, you know, we plan for the worst case scenario. Ron and Eric and we talked about that before. That's why we train so much, is we hope for the best, but we plan for the worst. And so even though you may say, oh, I would know, I could get out of the seat. Trust me, if all of a sudden we say we're going to evacuate the plane, the idea that you'll look down and say, oh, I have to step over the strap from my backpack, probably is not going to happen. We are required to be able to completely evacuate an aircraft within 90 seconds or less, and with one of the emergency exits possibly blocked. That is our requirement. So we really do go through the cabin to make sure that things are stowed properly. So we're not trying to be mean or nasty. We're not trying to make sure that you can't get to your backpack. We really are trying to keep you safe. So.
Yeah, and as Diane said, it's to get you out of there in a hurry if we have to. And it's like so much in life, the things that you never have to do are the ones that actually cause the biggest problems if you ever have to do them. Exactly. And so that's an important thing. And the main thing with the overhead bins and stuff like that is we don't want you to open that and fall on somebody's head. Right. And because there have been in the past been people seriously injured with that. So I just want to, I have
a question, Ron.
Go ahead.
There's a question. It's a great question, actually. So in the overhead bins for these, the carry-ons, wheels in or wheels out?
It depends.
That was a question.
It depends. It depends. And that's a big thing. There's not one size fits all. It depends on the airline, depends on the aircraft. Even with the same aircraft, some of the configurations are different. And so it really, if you have a question, ask the flight attendant on
I flew a 320 over the weekend, and I flew a 700 and I flew an 800. And the 800s for sure are the ones that if you meet the size requirements, you can put that in long ways, either way.
Right.
You know, in the old days, it mattered whether you had the wheels out or the wheels in.
Yeah.
Now with the new ones, you can, but in the older 320s, no, you have to turn most suitcases sideways. So you lose bin space from doing that. But it's a great question. So, and you'll figure it out instantly. You go up there and you put it in there and you try to shut it and it won't clear. So,
And
it's
if when you board and the flight attendant, particularly in the front, looks at you and looks, and that's another thing we do. We look at everybody that comes on in their bags. And if we look at you and say, you know, I just don't think that's going to fit, seriously, believe her or him, go gate jet the jet bridge, because the longer, if you say, oh, I think it'll fit, it can delay boarding, it can delay the departure, it can delay all kinds of things. So really just valet check it.
Yeah, Dieter did the Meet the Fockers with Ben Stiller. If you haven't, go on YouTube and look for Ben Stiller in Meet the Fockers for that scene where there's two of them really. There's the boarding incident, and then right after that, he gets removed from the airplane. But I say that you know, honesty, there's a lot of people out there flying, and I saw a lot of tension. I saw a lot of I'm going to say overworked agents. At least they appeared overworked, and the tensions are higher out there. So you do want to be, you know, you want to be mindful of how you're doing and how they're doing, and because we don't want to see any of you get not only thrown off the airplane, but permanently barred from flying in them. And this week, I don't know how long it's been going on, Diane might, but not only do they make a cabinet announcement about that it's a federal law, and they made it, you know, for sure they're doing it because the contrast was the CDC last week just came out with the fact that if you have both vaccines, then you're good for you're safer to be around people without masks. But the rules are still masked on airplanes. So the flight attendant makes it at least once or twice during their announcement, and the captain does when he makes his initial announcement. Right, and they very heavily emphasize that it's a federal law and you have to do it. So just count on it and don't be a Ben Stiller and get thrown off the airplane. So, okay. All right. So let's go on. We got just a couple of questions here that again, were worth mentioning out there. Had one from Shelley. Shelley's been a long time follower, and bless her heart, she shared a story about her husband and a friend of his had to go to a conference. And at first, it was fun just me exchanging with her to get it kind of sorted out. But the by and large, it was about a lightning strike, and we couldn't come to the truth about what phase the airplane was in. But she said, I thought airplanes were protected from lightning. And the fact is that they are. They're protected if they get struck. And we have shielding in the airplane, which is an electronic way of like your surge protectors that you use to plug your electronic equipment in, primarily your computer. So if there's an over voltage, it can dissipate the charge, and then we don't have any way we protect ourselves from lightning strikes. So we're vulnerable if there's a lightning strike. And in this particular thing that I'll just touch on, she wasn't sure at what phase they were in, but they eventually came back around and landed and got another airplane. So there may have been more involved in that. But what I want to emphasize is the fact that we can take lightning strikes. We do take lightning strikes. Some of my friends are Eric. We were talking last week. He was amazed that I never had a lightning strike, which is like you would imagine with the big crash and all that, which a lot of pilots do. I had a couple of lightning strikes, but I only knew about them because the walk around at the end, we saw a little bit of a burn spot on the radome. A lot of times lightning is attracted because there's the radar up there with a lot of high energy coming off of that. So we can take lightning, but it usually doesn't affect the service of the airplane. And in any case, it doesn't wipe out all the circuits because we have multiple ways of getting power to important instruments. So much for that. The other question was, it came off of YouTube, had a fellow, and some of you will be able to relate to this. This is a man who makes his living in maintenance. He's a maintenance technician for his company. Now he's not in aviation maintenance, but so one of the things that really bugs him is when he gets on an airplane, he can't help but think of all the possibilities from his own maintenance history that could go wrong with that airplane. And then he starts doing all this troubleshooting, which works really well in his job, I'm sure. But the problem is it's not his job when he gets on the airplane to make sure everybody did their job. Okay. It's like those of you who worry, about other things, about the weather and all that. You've heard me joke, don't do the pilot's job for him. Don't do the mechanic's job for him. That's our job to worry about that. You try to distract yourself, disrupt your thinking, and learn how to just be friends with your anxiety there. Okay, and the last thing, there was a little article in the news from our old friend Arnold Barnett, who does the statistics on the airline. And Arnold, we touched last week, there was an article from somebody in the food service industry or produce industry about how they're advocating they use the same type of non-punitive measures to find mistakes in bringing food to production, because an E. coli outbreak, for example, is devastating to the produce industry. And so they're trying to get ahead of that. You can imagine the mentality of people trying to find out who caused it and what farm it came from and all that. But anyway, and so there was an article this week with Arnold Barnett again talking about not only are your chances of dying in an airplane crash 1 in 33.2 million in a first tier airline, if you just look at the last from 2012 on, it's now 1 in 120 million if you look at the domestic US. So it's getting safer and safer and safer. It has been for the last 30, 40 years in aviation. But again, the problem is we are not creatures of probability, we're creatures of possibility. So most of you say to me, hey, Ron, you didn't say 0 chance in 33.2 million. You said 1 chance, and I will be that one. So get over it. You're not going to be that one. All right. Anything else out there, Dieter? I think we'll wind it up there with a last minute, just to add, reminding people to sign up for a 15-minute coaching session if you haven't. Those cards and letters are coming in. I'm off to fly some more this week, and looking forward to it. Hope you all are doing the same. So Dieter, anybody else or any comments to add to that?
Well, just big shout out to Shally, because you just talked about her question, and
Yeah.
Shally is watching as well. So thanks for joining. And I just also wanted to really encourage, because sometimes there's questions. This is really the place where you can ask those questions that are mulling over. And even if you don't actually, because I like how Ron, how you always compare field flying with analogy. As long as you don't fly, you're okay. It's just when you are thinking of booking that flight, or when you're thinking of getting to the airport, or when you're thinking of getting on, then that anxiety, poof, just all of a sudden shows up. So practice that here as well, in the sense that if you had to fly, and this was your opportunity to ask the question that feels like, I got to know the answer to that, right? This is the place. So the show is going to be much better, just like every one of you could really relate to the courage and to, the way that Ross felt when that happened during session number 3. I mean, that's crazy, man. So, but many of you can relate. So practice that courage of coming out of your shell, so to speak, and ask those sweaty questions.
Yeah, years ago, I heard that when one person writes their senator, they count that as the equivalent of 50,000 people have the same issue in the US. It's probably more than that now. So it's very similar in fear of flying. If you have that question, you bring it out, you're probably speaking for a lot of people out there. So as Dieter said,
Amazon equates one negative review with right now 15 positive. So
there you go.
Which is very much in line with the way our brain works and our systems work. So.
Yeah. So thanks again for coming by and trusting us with your sensitivity and all that. And we'll be back next week with another episode of Fearless Flight, and we'll probably get to see if Eric ever got it off the ground down there. So
we're gonna have pictures.
Yeah, we'll have pictures. So anyway, so thanks everybody, and come back next week and see us again. Have a great week. Bye-bye.